The Kurds. A people numbering nearly 40 million. They have their own language, culture, and thousands of years of history. This population is larger than that of countries like Poland or Canada. They are one of the largest ethnic groups in the Middle East. Yet, they have no existence on the map. These are the Kurds, a brave and unfortunate child of history. They have lived for centuries in a vast mountainous region, stretching from Turkey's Anatolia to Iran's Zagros mountains, from the fertile lands of Iraq to the northern regions of Syria. This region is their dream homeland, Kurdistan, meaning land of the Kurds. For the past century, they have fought for independence, endured unimaginable persecution, and been repeatedly betrayed by powerful states. They were the frontline warriors against terrifying forces like ISIS. But at the end of the war, they received only neglect and deprivation instead of rewards. But why? Why does this group, one of the world's largest ethnic groups, not have a state of their own? What historical conspiracy or geopolitical curse has kept them from uniting under one flag? And how much of their own internal division is to blame? Today, we will try to find the answers to all these questions. The Kurds are primarily an Indo-European ethnic group, ethnically close to the Persians. Their language, Kurdish, is related to Persian and has multiple dialects. While this linguistic diversity is indicative of their rich culture, it has sometimes also stood as a barrier to a unified national identity. Religiously, most Kurds are Sunni Muslims, but there are also Shia, Alevi, Yazidi, and Christian communities, which gives their society a multidimensional character. Their homeland, historically known as Kurdistan, is not a formal country. It is a cultural and geographical region divided across the borders of 4 nations: southeastern Turkey, western Iran, northern Iraq, and northern Syria. This mountainous and rugged terrain has preserved their distinct identity and fighting spirit for centuries. The Kurds have a famous proverb, "No friends but the mountains." This saying is a poignant reflection of their geographical isolation and historical loneliness. While these mountains have protected them from outside attacks, they have also made communication between their own different groups difficult and kept them isolated from the international world. Historically, Kurds consider themselves descendants of ancient Mesopotamian peoples like the Medes, Gutians, and Hurrians. They adopted Islam after the arrival of the Arabs in the 7th century. Later, they survived as various autonomous principalities or emirates under the Ottoman and Persian empires. The historic hero Sultan Saladin, who recaptured Jerusalem from the Crusaders, was also a Kurd. This rich history has given birth to a deep nationalism within them, which continues to ignite their desire for freedom to this day. The tragedy of modern Kurdish statelessness begins at the start of the 20th century, upon the ruins of World War I. The Ottoman Empire, which had ruled vast parts of the Middle East for nearly 600 years, was defeated in the war, and the victorious Allied powers, Britain and France, began to carve up this vast empire according to their own interests. During this time, a new wind of self-determination for nations was blowing, based on U.S. President Woodrow Wilson's famous 14 points. This policy ignited new hopes of freedom in the minds of the world's colonized nations. Under this principle, ethnic groups under Ottoman rule, like the Arabs, Armenians, and Kurds, began to dream of forming their own states. A formal manifestation of this dream was the 1920 Treaty of Sèvres. This treaty imposed harsh terms on the defeated Ottoman Empire by the Allies. Articles 62, 63, and 64 of this treaty were a historic moment for the Kurds. It explicitly stated that an autonomous Kurdish region would be formed in eastern Turkey, and that, within a year, the Kurds there could hold a referendum for independence, which would be recognized by the League of Nations. For the first time in history, an international treaty promised Kurdish independence. The 1,000-year-old dream of the Kurds was on the verge of becoming a reality. But this dream was short-lived. Although the Treaty of Sèvres was signed by the Ottoman Sultan, Turkish nationalists fiercely opposed it. Led by Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, the Turkish nationalists started a war of independence against this humiliating treaty. After 3 years of bloody war, Ataturk's forces were victorious, forcing the Allies to negotiate a new treaty. The reasons behind this were complex. On one hand was Ataturk's military success. On the other were the shifting interests of the Allies. In the Middle East, particularly in the Mosul province of Mesopotamia, which was part of Kurdistan, vast oil reserves had been discovered. Britain wanted to include these oil fields within the new state of Iraq, which it controlled. If an independent Kurdish state were formed, controlling this oil would be difficult. Thus, the economic importance of mineral oil outweighed the national rights of the people in the eyes of the victorious powers. This led to the signing of the Treaty of Lausanne in 1923. This new treaty conceded to almost all of the emerging Turkish republic's demands. The biggest victims were the Kurds and the Armenians. The Treaty of Lausanne made no mention of Kurdistan or the right to self-determination for the Kurds. The very British and French, who had promised them independence 2 years prior, were now more interested in normalizing relations with Turkey and establishing control over Middle Eastern oil. The map of Kurdistan that was drawn in the Treaty of Sèvres was permanently erased by the Treaty of Lausanne. This was one of the greatest betrayals in Kurdish history, known as the Great Betrayal. Their homeland was ruthlessly divided among 4 new or reconstituted nations. Their fate was sealed under 4 different states, in 4 different prisons. Since the Treaty of Lausanne, Kurdish history is a bloody saga of struggling for their identity and rights under 4 different states. Turkey is home to the largest number of Kurds, but the founder of modern Turkey, Ataturk, adopted a policy of building a single, homogeneous Turkish nation. Under this policy, the very existence of Kurds was denied. After early Kurdish resistance, like the 1925 rebellion led by Sheikh Said, was brutally suppressed, the Turkish state implemented a strict assimilation policy. Kurds were referred to as Mountain Turks. The Kurdish language, culture, and even the words Kurd or Kurdistan were officially banned. In response to this extreme oppression, the Kurdistan Workers' Party, or PKK, was founded in 1978 under the leadership of Abdullah Öcalan. The PKK, initially with a Marxist-Leninist ideology, began an armed struggle against Turkey for an independent Kurdistan. In the 4 decades of conflict that followed, more than 40,000 people have been killed. To suppress this insurgency, the Turkish state has used controversial methods like destroying Kurdish villages, displacing millions, and creating a village guard system to sow division among the Kurds themselves. Turkey and its Western allies view the PKK as a terrorist organization, but to many Kurds, they are uncompromising freedom fighters. However, the PKK announced it was moving away from armed struggle in May 2025. Since this past July, PKK members have officially begun surrendering their weapons. Currently, the PKK is attempting to move from armed conflict to democratic politics. The fate of Iraq's Kurds was the most dramatic and bloody. Although they received promises of autonomy from Baghdad at various times, they were never fully implemented. After Saddam Hussein's Ba'ath Party came to power in the 1970s, the situation became horrific. In 1975, when the Shah of Iran, at the behest of the US, withdrew support for the Iraqi Kurds through the Algiers Agreement, their resistance movement collapsed, another great betrayal. Under Saddam's rule, the Kurds faced one of history's most brutal genocides. During the 1987 to 1988 Anfal campaign, nearly 180,000 Kurds were systematically killed. Its culmination was the chemical attack on the town of Halabja on March 16, 1988, where nerve gas was used to kill over 5,000 Kurdish men, women, and children in an instant. But after Saddam's fall in 2003, the fortunes of the Iraqi Kurds turned. With US support, they established a very strong autonomous region in Iraq's new constitution, the Kurdistan Regional Government, KRG. With its own army, the Peshmerga, its own parliament, and control over its own oil resources. This region is one of the most stable and prosperous areas in the Middle East today. It is the closest model to an independent Kurdistan. Although they held an independence referendum in 2017, it ultimately failed due to strong opposition from Iraq, Turkey, Iran, and the international community. The Kurds in Iran have also faced decades of oppression. In 1946, with Soviet support, they managed to establish an independent state called the Republic of Mahabad for just 11 months. It was a fleeting moment, but it carries immense symbolic importance in the history of Kurdish nationalism. As soon as Soviet troops withdrew, the Iranian government brutally crushed the republic. Even after the Islamic Revolution, the situation for Iran's Kurds did not improve. The Tehran government harshly suppresses any Kurdish nationalist movement. The struggle of the Kurds here is largely limited to achieving cultural and political rights, which often remains hidden from international media. In Syria, the Kurds were the most marginalized population. Under the rule of Bashar al-Assad's father, Hafez al-Assad, an Arab Belt policy attempted to change the demographics by settling Arabs in Kurdish regions. Hundreds of thousands of Kurds were denied citizenship. But the situation changed in 2011 with the start of the Syrian civil war. While Bashar al-Assad's government was busy fighting rebels in other parts of the country, the main Kurdish political force, the People's Protection Units, YPG, and their female branch, YPJ, established an autonomous region in the north known as Rojava. This Rojava region then found itself on the front line of the rise of the Islamic State, or ISIS. YPG and YPJ fighters, with the support of US airstrikes, fought ISIS head-on and achieved historic victories in cities like Kobani. They were the most effective force in defeating ISIS. But history repeated itself. In 2019, after the defeat of ISIS, the United States suddenly announced the withdrawal of its troops from the region. Seizing this opportunity, Turkey, which considers the YPG a branch of its enemy, the PKK, launched a military operation in Rojava. The Kurds who had bled for years fighting ISIS on behalf of America were abandoned by America. This was the 21st century's great betrayal of the Kurds. Now the question is, despite a century of struggle, why has freedom remained elusive for the Kurds? There are several deep and complex reasons behind this, often known as the curse of Kurdistan. Geographical and geopolitical strangulation. Kurdistan is a completely landlocked region. Even if an independent Kurdish state were formed, it would be surrounded by 4 hostile nations: Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and Syria. None of them want an independent Kurdistan, as they fear it would encourage their own Kurdish populations to seek independence. These countries could easily cripple a new Kurdish state by imposing an economic blockade. Furthermore, the Kurdistan region is rich in strategic resources like oil, which further incentivizes these nations to maintain control over it. Internal divisions. The Kurds themselves are not a monolithic group. They have deep political, linguistic, and tribal divisions. In Iraqi Kurdistan, the rivalry between the two main political parties, the Barzani family's KDP, Kurdistan Democratic Party, and the Talabani family's PUK, Patriotic Union of Kurdistan, was so severe that they fought a civil war against each other in the 1990s. They each have separate Peshmerga forces and areas of control. This division has often been the biggest obstacle to forming a united Kurdish front. There are also fundamental differences between the Marxist secular ideology of Turkey's PKK and the traditional capitalist orientation of Iraq's KRG. Pawns in a great game. Their greatest misfortune is that they have always been used as pawns by regional and international powers. During the Cold War, both the United States and the Soviet Union used various Kurdish groups against Iran or Iraq at different times. During the Iran-Iraq War, Iran supported Iraqi Kurds and Iraq supported Iranian Kurds. More recently, the United States used Syrian Kurds to fight ISIS. But every time, as soon as the strategic interest evaporated, these great powers abandoned the Kurds. The reason the Kurds do not have a country is not a single event. It is a complex equation of a century-old historical betrayal, the brutal oppression of 4 powerful states, their own internal divisions, and the selfishness of international politics. Despite all this, the Kurdish national identity and desire for freedom are stronger than ever. In Iraq, they have a functioning autonomous state. In Syria, they are dreaming of building a new society from the ashes of a bloody civil war. In Turkey and Iran, millions of Kurds continue to struggle for their cultural and political rights. In the 21st century, the Kurds stand at a critical juncture in their history. Will the world once again ignore their just demands? Or, after a century of deprivation and struggle, will they finally find a piece of land for themselves on the world map? The fate of 40 million people and the future stability of the Middle East depends on the answer to this question. The story of the Kurds is the story of the inhabitants of an unwritten map, still searching for their final home.